Well, hello there, morons. It's Victor Gimmeabreakman, the king of the morons. I'm here at a temple late at night. And, well, it's not that late. It's just past midnight. This is a temple near my house, one of my favorite temples. And this video is for Alice. So Alice, let me say that right away. So, and also for people who watch me. I just want to show you at this particular temple, they often make these like collages. Look at this. This is a bee and a dragonfly, and temple with Anpanman and a little lion there, right? Yeah. So anyway, the festival's coming soon. I'm not sure when. Maybe it's over. It looks like, yeah, they're charging there, but it must be over. Anyway, I just wanted to show you the stage here. For some reason, they have this little stage where you can just hang out. One thing I like about Japan is they have these places where you can just hang out and do nothing and nobody cares. It's not like church in America where you gotta be quiet, right? So tonight's video is a laundry video, and Alice, you don't know what that is because you're new to this silliness, but a laundry video is basically where I make a really long video, and it's so long that you can do your laundry and you don't actually have to watch, you can just listen. So, and I usually have a drink. This is something called Strong Zero, 9% alcohol. And this is for Alice. Alice was my boss in college. So before we get started on this a little bit, it's not so much about Alice as it is for Alice. So just to refresh Alice's memory, in case she's forgotten, I came to you when I was, I believe, a sophomore in college, maybe. Yeah, I don't think it was my freshman year. I think it was a sophomore in college. So I must have been 18, 19 years old. And I interviewed for you, your position, assistant to Alice, the publicist. And this is back in 1986 or 87. And I did not get the job. Do you remember, Alice? You didn't hire me. I was so beautiful back then, but I was not, you know, she wasn't taken by my good looks. She, I didn't have glasses back then, remember? She didn't hire me. Instead, she chose to hire a woman who had recently gotten divorced, and I think she needed something to do. I think that was the story. And she told me over the phone, and I very politely said, "Well, that's a shame. Please let me know if you change your mind." And a week later, she called me and she said, "It's not working out with this woman." What was her name? I don't remember that woman's name. But it's not working out with this woman, so why don't you come in? And I became her assistant. The job in those days entailed, it was pre-internet times, or at least we didn't have internet. I don't think anyone really had internet in those days. The job entailed proofreading galleys, the pre-books before a book is published, writing the copyright on the book to promote the book. Of course, she did that. I'm pretty sure I might have helped a little bit. I don't think so. It might have been my. I like to think that I helped, but I think I basically just proofread hers, or maybe made an odd suggestion here and there. I was a literature major, so it was an honor to work for her. I was English lit major, and so, you know, I had fancy dreams of becoming a writer myself someday. So this was a great way to learn the business, so to speak. But and I got to meet some really cool people. A lot of our work entailed, just to explain, check galleys, help promote books. When authors came to New York City, where the stories taking place in New York City, I would help, like, meet them at the station or airport or whatever. I don't think I ever went to the airport, but I met them somewhere, and I would help bring them to the office, which was part of her apartment. and maybe help take them to radio interviews and things like that. I met quite a few really cool people. The most interesting being, I think, what was his name? John MacDonald, the writer of the Fletch novels. A guy who wrote a book called My Amputations, and we shared a love for a book called Pimp. He was a Clarence something, I think was his name. He's a professor somewhere. And Ingram Morath, who was married, I believe she was the second wife of Arthur Miller, of course, from the Death of a Salesman fame. And they had a daughter who went on to marry, who the mother tried to set me up with. She goes, "Oh, you're lovely. I'd love you to meet my daughter." And I'm like, "I got a girlfriend." And she went on to marry Daniel Day-Lewis, and she's a director now. So luckily it didn't work out for me and her, because it would have ruined, that whole thing. Anyway, so I worked for Alice for about, I think about a year or so, maybe. And then I think I took I remember who was it? Who was this? Yeah, my freshman year, I was at New York University. I think after that, I went to South America for 1 year, and then I came back pretty much in love with another girl. Or was it? I also had a girlfriend named Shelley, who later turned out to become a lesbian. So, which a lot of the easy joke is, that's your fault, Victor. You turned into a lesbian, which is a shallow, silly joke. But let me just get it out of the way for you. But don't keep in touch anymore. But the last I heard, she was doing great. She has a kid, and that's all I know. So anyway, Alice and I worked together for a couple of years, and we became very, very good friends. And she was around 50. I think she was like 49 or 50. And I was, 19. And in those days, and she was a very, let me just give you guys a visual. She's a very tall, attractive, fit woman. She's in good shape. But she was 49, 50, which is what I am now. That is my age now. So it's really strange for me to look back at that time, thinking that, wow, she's the age that I am now. It seems so strange. Because, it seemed like we were years we were 30 years apart back then. But it didn't seem like, I don't know what to think. It just seems strange that I've reached that age now. You know what it is? It's gone by so quickly. Really, 30 years have passed like that. So much and so little has changed. And she contacted me last week, actually about more than a week now, and she asked me to fill her in on my life, and I thought, what better way than fill her in this way, because this is a big part of my life now. It's just communicating with everyone on the internet. I'm having trouble remembering how we parted ways. I remember you met a wonderful man who was a marathon runner, and he swept you away and took you out west. I think to San Francisco, yes. And that's the last I heard of you. You wrote me a recommendation for Jane, who had her own art book publishing company. I became her assistant after that. And I also became a taxi driver. I think you know that. I started driving taxis late at night, from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m., the night shift. My friend Jeff came to visit from California, and he became a taxi driver too. And my life continued. I ended up not marrying that girl from Argentina. The one that I guess she was my fiance. I don't know. Yeah, I guess so. Beautiful girl. I don't know if you ever met her, but oh yes, Alice spoke Spanish very well, and we went to Peru together once too. That was cool. And I was silly. I was young and silly, and but I was her guide, though she didn't really need me because she spoke Spanish very well. How did you learn Spanish? I don't remember that. Anyway, after I left Alice, I worked for Jane for a while, and Jane was cool. She was a little bit snobby, but very, very fine, very nice. I remember she was a bit aloof too, but once I went to her house, she gave a cocktail party, and I went to her house, and she was a little drunk, and she said, I feel like I should give you a hug. And she owned a brownstone where on one of the floors she rented out to a very famous, at the time, an Oscar-winning actress. She was the one who played a man in the war in the movie about being a journalist in Vietnam. She played a male journalist during Vietnam, and I don't remember the name of it, but she won the Oscar. And she, I think she lived there. I think she was gay too, and she, like my ex-girlfriend, and she lived in that building. It's not really relevant. I think it was relevant then, so maybe I remember it that way as being relevant because I was brought up in a much more discriminating, a more racist and homophobic. Let's just be blunt. My upbringing was not my parents so much as my surroundings were more racist and homophobic. Not super, but a bit. So maybe it stood out in my memory that way. But I worked with Alice, and then I worked with Jane, and then I drove a taxi for a while in New York City and made more money driving a taxi than working a proper job in an office. I rode my bicycle around a lot. You might remember I used to ride my bicycle in Central Park very early in the morning. I want to say it's like 6 a.m. for an hour or so. I would do 6 loops around Central Park. And then I went, then how did I get to Japan, right? I took a bus. They had some kind of deal, a Greyhound bus, like a $50 bus ticket. And you could stop anywhere along the way. So I took a bus. Oh no, before that I went back to South America one more time with Jeff. And Jeff Rasmussen, who we drove a taxi. I think you might remember him. We drove a taxi together in New York City as well. I think you might have met him. We went to South America, and we went as far as Guatemala and then parted ways, and I went my way and he went his way, and we both had adventures. We lived in the jungle for a couple weeks and mined gold. We panned for gold in the river. Adventures. We carried machetes in our backpacks, to cut through the jungle. And then he went off to Alaska to count fish. And I took the Greyhound. I went home I went home for a while and hung out with my parents for like a month. And then I packed my bags and went to, I got a one-way ticket from, I believe it was Seattle to Tokyo. And it was like $400. In those days they had these weird, I don't think you could probably do it anymore, but they had this weird deal where you could pay like a small amount of money for a one-way ticket, but you weren't allowed to have any luggage. You could only bring your day pack, whatever you check in, and you couldn't check in any luggage. You would have to carry whatever luggage they had for you. And I think that's how I did it. And so I went to Tokyo with just a backpack. And my old friend Naoki met me at the airport in Tokyo and dragged me over to Nagoya, where his parents, near Nagoya, one of the suburbs here. And I homestayed there for about a month. After about a month, I got a job at a really dinky little school. But it was right after the bubble. And on my day off, I would sub at another school and make a little extra money. The rate, the going rate, the salary, the minimum salary back in those days was decided, I want to say in Japanese, was established by law. They had to pay you a minimum of 250,000 yen, which was about $2,500 to $3,000, depending on the exchange rate. And that's what I got for a while. And quite quickly, I fell in love with a young lady here in Japan, who would be in and out of my life for the next, 5 years. And ended up breaking my heart quite a few times. But by that time, I had left the small rinky-dinky school. I acquired a bunch of privates. I was making about $7,000 a month. And I was single and had a very little overhead. Ended up getting a huge apartment I didn't need. Became a head teacher. First got a part-time job, and then I became a full-time teacher, and then a head teacher. The first foreign head teacher at a school at the YWCA, believe it or not. It's the YWCA, but they do employ male teachers, and I became the first foreign teacher there, head teacher there. And my classes were sold out. I taught movie classes and script classes and listening classes and literature, and things were going great. And I was really into that girl I told you about, and things didn't work out. But I had spent so much time learning Japanese, going to Japanese school properly, and taking every course, that I'd invested so much time. I thought, I'm not going to run back to America with my tail between my legs. By the way, I'm wearing these headphones, just to monitor the sound, to make sure that I'm actually picking up here. Anyway, so there I was, basically heartbroken, making lots of money, and single in Japan. And I ended up getting a motorcycle license, which had always been a dream of mine. Things I wanted to do were travel, get a motorcycle license, learn to play the guitar. Ended up doing all those things. And I was so successful at the school that the school staff encouraged me to break off and make my own school, because the YWCA is basically a charity. They didn't care about whether they made money or not. So I said, okay, I'll break off and make my own school. And I did that, and I was very successful for a while. After a few years of just being, a wild and crazy guy, so to speak, I ended up buying into a bar, a group of 4 people who owned a bar. And with that group, I ended up, after that I was asked by a band here in Nagoya to become the manager. None of them spoke Japanese well, and they were really good musicians, but they had no idea of how to get gigs and stuff. So they asked me to be their manager, and I did. And they became the #1 band in Nagoya. And I ended up buying another bar with that group. So we had 2 bars, and then I had the band, and I had the school, and I was basically big man on campus, so to speak. I met a wonderful girl that I had no intention of marrying because she was a wonderful girl. And I thought, she's too nice. So we went out for a while, and then we broke up. Her name was Yoko. And then the bar, this becomes a little bit, this is part of the story. This is where the twist comes. There were 4 members who owned the bars, right? The accountant, her name, I will not say on camera just in case, but she was a woman, and she was the accountant. And for some reason, she was a Filipino woman who was secretly stealing money from the bar and sending it to her friend in the Philippines who needed a heart transplant, apparently. This is the story I heard. Now, she was secretly stealing money, and because I was basically the most trusted member of the bar, because I worked the most there, or maybe just because I worked the most there, she framed me, and she made it look like I had lost some money. Not a lot of money, only $800, but still. What happened was the rest of the members, the other 2 members, they said, well, it looks like Victor is losing money. He can't account for this $800, so we're going to not kick me out of the group, but what they decided was they were going to put me on probation for 1 year. And which meant I was not allowed to go behind the bar anymore, which was bizarre, since I was one of the owners, and actually I was the guy, and we had we had bought a second bar by then, and that second bar was all my idea. Anyway, so I was pretty furious because I had felt I had done nothing wrong, but at the same time I couldn't prove it. Because on paper it looked like I was missing $800, and I don't know why, you know, because I work so often, I couldn't account for the money, long story short. So I convinced them to just let me leave and give me back my investment for the 2 bars, and I would just walk away with a contract and a cordial separation, right? A cordial parting of ways. About a month later, a big music group came and asked my band if they would like to join that group, if they could manage them, and the stipulation was to get rid of Victor because we don't need 2 managers, which was fine, except for some reason the band thought I would be upset by this, which in fact I wasn't. I was quite happy because it was quite a bit of work, and I really didn't know what I was doing. So the band quite unceremoniously cut me off, and they announced that Victor's not the manager anymore, and they told me, and I said fine, no problem. But they also changed all the passwords on the home pages which I had built, and I was pretty insulted by that too. I had also invested money in the band too. It was weird, they just thought I would screw them over because I wasn't manager anymore, when actually I was just happy for them, but the fact that they suspected that really hurt my feelings, and I walked away from that as well. So now within a month I'd changed from being big man on campus to suspected thief and ex-manager. And I had kind of an identity crisis. And I also had all this time on my hands suddenly. And what did I do? I started just surfing the internets, and I found YouTube. YouTube was just coming up then. It was, I think, in its first or second year. I think it was second year. And I made an account, and I started uploading teaching videos for my students, just so I could reinforce whatever lesson I was making. And I did it without putting my face on camera. I just did a screen. They were terrible videos. But I also started watching more videos, and I started getting into the conversation, or watching the conversation, because YouTube used to be mostly a series of answering machine messages that people would send to each other. It was pretty weird. And my YouTube career was born. So Alice, this is gonna, I don't know how if you have any opinion about this at all, but we come from a world of literature and books and words, which I still very much respect. I still love books, but the world was changing, and I guess this was the next form of communication. These videos, and this is why I delayed. See, Alice emailed me about 10 days ago, or 2 weeks ago maybe. And she asked me to tell her what was up with my life, and I guess I wanted to present it this way because this is what's happening in my life right now. This is my life. This is the way I represent myself now. I mean, I could have written you an email. I can still write. I'm still quite literate. I'm still good at writing, but I thought this would be the most apropos way of representing myself. So she asked me what's new. So after my falling out with the band and the bar owners, I started YouTube. And at the same time, my old friend Jeff, who I was a taxi driver with, had gone to Tokyo to get a kidney replaced. He got a kidney transplant. And so he was in the hospital in Tokyo, and he was one of the other bar owners. And of course we had a falling out because of the bar. Because I was insulted that anyone would think I would steal from them, especially him. He was like a brother. About a year passed or so. I ended up getting a dog. I ended up marrying Yoko, because Yoko, who was coming in and out of my life, I realized she stuck with me, and she didn't care, she never cared, whether I was big man on campus or not. She just wanted to be with me. So, and I always thought she was too good for me. So why, I don't know. Oh, you know what it was? I loved being a family with her, with our dog. You know, it was my dog, but I like the way she treated the dog. I could see her love. I could see her potential for love. I could see the way, you know, and it, you know what? I don't know. I'm sure you've heard this before, but the way to judge, one way to judge a person is judge. You can see what a person's soul is like by the way they treat waiters or animals. But I don't know about the animal thing, because I'm pretty sure Hitler was nice to a German Shepherd once. You know, look what happened to him. But not to say my wife is Hitler, but I don't know. She can kick ass though sometimes. But anyway, long story short, I kept breaking up with Yoko because I thought she deserved someone better, and we kept, you know, for some reason or other, coming back together again. And I don't know, I just thought, I was just happy one day. We were together, and we were actually in the kitchen of my rinky-dinky little apartment, and I reached over and grabbed her leg and said, hey, let's get married. Unbeknownst to me, she was about to leave me, because she thought she was wasting her time. She knew she was wasting her time. So we got married in Hawaii on the beach, and my YouTube, it wasn't a career there. My YouTube hobby, and it was, you know, it was a healthy hobby. It's better than going to the bars and stuff. I made videos and uploaded them and communicated with people, and slowly grew my online presence. And things were going well. You know, I had the dog, Maggie. The school was doing well. I had Yoko, and we moved to another apartment. And then we ended up buying a house. And then about 4 years ago, Maggie died. And that was pretty devastating. And that sounds kind of ridiculous. And it is ridiculous because it's only a dog. But at the moment, it felt like everything, you know. And I honestly thought for a second that Yoko was going to divorce me. I don't know why. I thought, now with this, you know, because this was our, you know what it was is, I brought her in. She had trouble breathing, and I thought, she just needs an operation. If she gets this operation, she's going to be okay. So I you know, I took her to the vet, and the vet said, well, you could leave it alone. She'll be like that forever, or you could try to get that thing removed from her throat. She had something in there growing there. So I thought, yeah, let's improve her life, because she was always so active. She was a French bulldog, but which are, I almost said the R word, really dumb animals. But she was a little genius for a French bulldog. Anyway, she was great. And we just, you know, the thing about Maggie, my dog, is that she opened the world for me here in Japan. I mean, it's a strange thing to say, but when I walked with her, no, everyone knew. I mean, you could do, if someone has a dog, they're not a short timer. They're not here for a short time. They live here. So people never asked me where I was from, which a lot of people do here in Japan. I mean, well, anywhere, you know. But, you know, this is something that I guess Alice, since I have to keep bringing this back to you, you know, you're a white person living in white America, and it was, you know, I never felt uncomfortable in America. I always felt comfortable. America's my home. I feel American. I'm American. But there was always the question of, where are you really from? Where are you really from? You know, what's your ancestry? What's your background? And I kind of doubt this happened to other people, unless they were, you know, slight. And I'm not even that, you know, ethnic looking. I'm slightly ethnic. People on YouTube will say, "Oh, you're white," you know. But you know, back in New York City, people thought I was Puerto Rican. In Florida, people thought I was Cuban. In Texas, people thought I was Mexican. So people always thought I was something else. But in Japan, people don't think I'm something else. They know I'm something else. So when people treat me funny here, it feels comfortable. That's the way things are supposed to be. It feels right. But when I had Maggie with me, because my Japanese is fluent enough that I can talk to anybody about anything, pretty much. Reading a newspaper is still pretty hard, but I can do it. Anyway, when I walked with Maggie, no one would ask me anything because they figured, you know, this guy's got a dog. He obviously lives here, and he obviously speaks Japanese. So people would never even ask me, "Where are you from?" It was bizarre. And that dog just opened up the whole neighborhood to me. So I became friends with people all over the neighborhood. You know, everyone knew who I was. And years later, after Maggie died, people would still say, I would meet people who didn't remember me because I didn't have the dog anymore. It was funny, like the dog almost labeled me. This happened a couple of times. Like, I said, you remember me? You know, I used to have that dog. And they were like, oh yeah, that's right. So it's funny, I became almost invisible because of that dog, which is kind of nice. Anyway, so we bought a house, we got a dog, the dog died. And then Yoko, you know, we were both pretty beat up about the dog. I would take the dog with me every day to school. It was our mascot. I had this silly little, like, old woman, we called it a mamachari, which kind of means like woman's bicycle. So I would take put the dog in the basket and ride it to school about 30 minutes every day. And she, you know, Maggie would run around the school, greet all the students. She was our mascot, and then come home with me every day. So she was with me all the time. And then when she died, it was pretty devastating. But then Yoko said, you know, let's make a real family next time. So let's try to have kids. And you know, lo and behold, she got pregnant almost immediately, which is really weird. Like, I don't know why, you know, we were together for like so many years, I don't know, 6 years without her getting pregnant. And suddenly, as soon as the dog dies, she gets pregnant. So weird. So we had Little Godzilla, that's what I call him on YouTube, or Inigo Montoya. Inigo. And it was the happiest day of my life, you know. I made a video of it. And it was, seriously, after I had that kid, I was like, I can die. I don't care anymore. I can die. I've done everything I wanted to in my life. I've had a great life. So, Alice, you asked me how's my life been? It's been great. I could die tomorrow. I mean, I got things to do. I got bills to pay. But I could die. I still got things, unfinished things. But there's so many things I still want to see. But never been to Paris, France. To be honest, I think I could die without going to Paris, France. I think I'd be okay with that. I don't know. I think I've pretty much been everywhere I want to be or go. I don't know. I think I'd like to walk around like some fields in Scotland or something. You know. I can't really think of anything I really want to do. I mean, there are many things I will do and want to do, but nothing that I would really super regret. So anyway, the point is I've had a good life. And after having my son, I thought, this is it. This is great. And I mean, looking back at the video, he's ugly. He's like a little alien, like, what the hell is this thing? He's all scrawny and wrinkly and red and gross, but he's a really cute kid. And then about a year and a half after that, my wife says, let's have another one. Do you want to have another one? I said, no, one's enough. One's enough. And she's like, well, what if we die or something? He'll be all alone. I'm like, no, he's got grandparents and cousins and stuff. But she thought we should have another one. So I said, okay, look, let's try for a couple months. And if it works, you know, if we have one, we have one. If we don't, we don't. Because neither of us are that young. My wife is 10 years younger than me, but still. Anyway, so she got pregnant immediately. It was like a miracle. And little Buttercup, I call her Buttercup, you know, Inigo Montoya Buttercup, Princess Bride. She's great too. She loves to dance. She loves to dance. She's always like, and she does hand motions, and she just loves to dance. She imitates everything she sees. She's so cute. She can't even talk yet, but she can communicate so well, and she's great too. And when I come home, you know, when I come home from work, My wife is usually making dinner, and my son's like playing with his toys or watching TV. But my daughter, Buttercup, she still comes over and she's all happy to see me. So that's nice. So that's my life, you know, pretty much. I'm still on YouTube doing various weird things, teaching Japanese. I've got these ASMR videos on another channel, which is basically me videotaping people getting haircuts, which is kind of a weird thing, but for some reason it's popular. And I'm doing well. I have no idea what you're doing. I think you're in San Francisco. I don't know. I don't know if you're with that guy that you left New York with, or if you're with a different guy. Or anyway, I do hope you're well. I will tell everyone who's watching this that 50 is young. But when I was 19 or 20 and I saw a 50-year-old person who was my boss Alice, I thought, wow, she's so much older. But, you know, there really isn't that much of a difference. When you put on a little weight, your skin changes a little bit, but you're still pretty much the same inside. There's not that much. Anyway. So that's my video for you. That's my, I guess, I mean, other things have happened all this time, but it's pretty much the gist of it. My life right now is, you know, waking up. I wake up every morning. I dress my kids. My wife gets ready for work. I feed my kids. My wife does the laundry. Sometimes I vacuum. Sometimes she vacuums. Sometimes I jump in the shower. Sometimes, well, actually I jump in the shower every day. So that's one factor. Sometimes I make them a banana milkshake. I often call my parents on Skype. My mom and dad are great. My brother came to Japan too. I forgot to mention that. That's a big deal. He came to Japan, I guess about 20 years ago. I've been here 28 years now. And maybe a little longer. Anyway, he, thanks to my suggestions, he didn't get a job right away. He went to school right away. He learned Japanese really, really well as well. My Japanese is better, I think, but whatever. And he got married to one of my ex-students. Sorry if I blew your cover there, Raul. He has 2 kids, and he's doing very well. He's got a very successful business and house with kids. Still a fisherman. My sister's living in Switzerland with her husband, who she met here in Japan, my ex-roommate. Very smart guy, very interesting guy. They have 2 genius kids. Gotta do something about that. They're like speak 5 languages each. My sister is in Florida with her new baby and husband, and they're doing great. They just bought a house. My mother broke her leg last week. That's the big news in my life, I guess. Well, no, I'm sorry, she didn't break her leg. She sprained her ankle, which apparently is worse. I didn't know that. Something I have a theory that we all have pockets of ignorance, which means, excuse me for the burp. Pocket of ignorance is when you don't know something that pretty much everyone else knew. So my pocket of ignorance discovery this week is that I did not know that having a broken leg is not as bad as having a sprained leg. So having a sprained leg, spraining your ankle is worse than breaking it. I didn't know that. So my mother sprained her ankle somehow. So now she's got this huge brace on her right leg. And she's got this funny like bicycle cart where she, like a knee rest or something, and she carts around shopping malls with that. But she's doing great. My father recently retired. They sold a huge house they used to have in Florida, and they moved into this little apartment. But they mostly travel, like they're never home. My mom and dad spend a lot of time in Peru. My grandfather died. He was the god. He was a god. My kind of joke nickname on YouTube is the Godfather of J-vloggers. But my grandfather was a real godfather, and he died a few years ago, and he left all this property. And my mother ended up like buying out her brothers and sisters and taking over this huge luxurious apartment in Lima, Peru, where they spend a lot of their time now. And ironically, it's half decorated with Japanese goods, or half Japanese decorations and stuff. But at least it's authentic, you know. Anyway, that's my life. I wish I could see you. I think of you very fondly. I hope you still have that huge poster I made for you. You probably don't. I did this collage for her, for Alice. Do you remember? I took all those photographs of Machu Picchu using a 35mm camera, proper camera, not digital. And I printed them all out, and I made this huge collage of Machu Picchu for her. And it was pretty cool. I was really happy with it. I lost the negatives, so you've got the only copy. If I ever like become a serial killer or become famous for any other reason, that's going to be worth a lot. So let's cross our fingers that one of those things happens. Anyway, that's all I got for you. I hope you enjoyed this. Well, you know, this video was really for Alice. So the rest of you just came along for the ride. I still got a little bit left in here. Yeah, it's a beautiful night. It's almost 1 a.m. so I'm gonna go to bed. Tomorrow's Saturday. I can get up late. That's nice. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. And Alice, I hope you're doing well. I apologize for this weird form of communication. But you know what? At the end of after you get this, I'll give you a week or so, and then I'm going to call you, and we'll talk on the phone like normal people, like normal people do, and we'll catch up properly. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope everyone's well. Talk to you guys soon.